Welcome to Hotter Than Ever, where we uncover the unconscious rules we've been following, we break those rules, and we find a new path to being freer, happier, sexier, and more satisfied in the second half of our lives. I'm your host, Erin Keating. Welcome to new listeners. Thank you for finding us. Welcome back, loyal listeners. Thank you both. Thank you all for being here. The fact that you listen to this show and share it with the people who mean the most to you in your lives means the world to me. I make this show for you. I make it for me, but I make it for you, and I make it for me, and I make it for us. I'm just back from spring break with my kids, and God, I love the teenagers. I love them. We had the best time on the East Coast. And Mama managed to scheme her way into a day and a half alone in New York to see friends and have adventures. And it was so much fun. And I definitely plan to spend more time there in 2025. I just feel like I'm home when I'm there. And that's because I basically grew up there for 15, 18 years. The most definitional years of my adult life were spent in New York City before I moved to Los Angeles. And, you know, I have to say, like in this new Hotter Than Ever chapter of my life, I was like a kid in a candy store. There were so many interesting and attractive men. I am ridiculous and, as usual, somewhat off the rails. And I may have spring fever. I think I may have spring fever, which brings me to today's episode. Today, my guests are Danielle Harel and Celeste Hirschman. Danielle and Celeste are experts in the intersection of emotional vulnerability and sexual attraction. And together they co-founded the Somatica Institute, where they've trained over 1,000 coaches and helped countless individuals and couples embrace vulnerability, rediscover desire, and create deeply fulfilling relationships. Is that not what we all want? Deeply fulfilling relationships, romantic, interpersonal, with ourselves. In their 3 books, Making Love Real, Coming Together, and Confidence, they challenge traditional views on relationships and intimacy and blend authenticity, humor, and bold honesty to inspire transformation. As listeners who know me might have already guessed, I loved this conversation. We talked about desire and centering yourself in your own erotic life, about asking for what you want and what you need. Like, why not ask for everything you want in your next relationship and then get like 70 or 80% of it rather than asking for 2% of what you want and getting nothing? I really needed to hear that. We talked about loving your body and understanding your fantasies and how you don't choose your core desires. You don't actually choose what turns you on. It's something that gets lodged in you at some early point in your life. And that was a revelation to me, even though I always sort of suspected that was true. But to have Danielle and Celeste really validate that was powerful. We talked about how relating interpersonally in a couple is something that we don't really get taught how to do, and that there are skills that, especially if you start to address them really early on in a new relationship, when everything is fresh and both of you are really open, that you can really lay some ground rules for how to take care of one another and how to be present for one another emotionally. I know you are going to want to share this conversation with your closest friends who need a burst of empowerment and who need to be reassured that good love and good sex and emotional connection is out there for all of us if we want it and learn how to ask for it. All right, let's get hot. Danielle and Celeste, welcome to Hotter Than Ever.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. So excited to be here.
I'm so happy to have you two here. I'd love for you to tell our listeners a little bit about what the Somatica Institute is and how you came to work in this space and how you came to work together.
Yeah, the Somatica Institute is a training institute where we teach coaches how to really help couples and individuals have the best sex and relationships possible. And we certify them in our method, which is experiential and mutually vulnerable. So instead of just talking and theorizing and then giving them homework, we actually practice in real time the tools of emotional and erotic connection together.
So your coaches model how to talk to each other in a couple, like for your clients, like explain what the experiential piece of it is.
Yeah, so like in every part of relationship or every skill that we need to develop, because because like intimacy skills are learnable. So the opportunity is with working with a coach is to practice different kinds of skills that are helpful in intimacy. For example, how to share feelings vulnerably, or how to share feelings at all. And then the coach and the client are sharing their own feelings that are real and authentic in that moment with each other. And people kind of learn to how to do that. And they're like, endless amount of little skills that we need to learn in order to have great sex and relationship. And we, as coaches and our coaches that we trained, practice those skills with their clients.
Oh my God. I mean, can you teach this in schools? Like we need to intervene earlier with people in terms of figuring out how to talk about their feelings, figure out how to know what they're feeling, how to not be scared to express what it is that they're feeling. I mean, so many of us are trained out of expressing our feelings as children, right? Where it's like
Absolutely.
not safe or it's not advantageous or it's not going to be heard. So then how do we, I mean, I just think about how I went into marriage like with no fucking tools.
Totally. All of us, right? We all
Right.
go into those experiences. It's just like, oh, how do we do this journey that's called life and relationship, and sex is a whole different layer of like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So, what are the deficits that people come to you with around being able to communicate, even really what their feelings are in an intimate relationship?
Well, I think, especially men are kind of trained not to feel their feelings or talk about their feelings. And so there's that deficit right there. And then I've been thinking so much about women and like what gets in our way. And I feel like so much of our socialization and training was about kind of organizing our lives around other people and relationships and not really listening to who we are and what we want and communicating that. And so much of what we help women with, I think, is putting themselves back at the center of their life, their dating life, their relationship life, so that they can be like equal partners and really be clear about what they want for themselves.
But that makes us bad women, right? If we don't center other people, we don't want to be selfish. Especially if we're mothers, like I mean, there's just so much guilt and so much sort of learned should kind of behavior. How do you deprogram that so that you can even figure out what do I want? What turns me on? How do I get connected to my partner? How do I center my pleasure? Like, I mean, that's so challenging.
Totally. It is challenging because, as you said, as women, we were trained to not put ourselves in the center of our lives. And like, it just like programming takes time, reprogramming or retraining takes time. And we're just like there step by step, reminding people like, hey, you can think about yourself. It's a good time to start seeing what do you want? Because women are not trained to ask or think, what do I want? What what relationship do I want? What gives me pleasure? How can I balance being a mom? And I am a mom, so I know like how much dedication it takes to be a mom. And I kind of like try to balance my life. And I was like, okay, if I'm a mom and I'm giving so much here, how about when I'm in a relationship with lovers and, I'm gonna get everything that I want there. So I kind of split it a little bit like that in my greedy life.
Yeah. Oh, we're the same.
You know what
I'm
You know what I think people are really bad at is like they don't know how to go into a conversation and have the tension of wanting different things and sit in that tension for a minute. You know what I mean? It's always like, oh, you need that thing? Okay, I'll drop what I need. Instead of like, hey, I want this. And you say, oh, you want that. And hey, those things are different. How do we sit with that? How do we talk through that instead of just immediately dropping what we want or trying to figure out what the other person wants? And I think, across genders, a lot of people do that. They can't just sit there and be like, okay, so we want different things. Hold on, let's not freak out about that and actually be in that moment.
I agree. I think the skill set of being able to tolerate awkwardness, discomfort, having feelings that aren't aligned with the people that you're in conversation with, like that. I mean, as a parent, that's the thing I'm trying to teach my kids is like, they're like, oh, it's so awkward. I'm like, there's worse things than awkward. Like, but I think especially as people get so dissociated from interpersonal relating as a result of technology, it's like, there's so much trepidation. And then our intimate relationships require us to up level all those skills that we may not have even come in, programmed with in the first place from our families of origin.
Yeah, totally. If I'm thinking about it, I think like what I see a lot of like in the dating world, just like younger people dating world, there's a lot of like, oh, something feels a little challenging. I don't know how to react to this, so let me just vanish and
Right.
not like show up at all, right? But actually, and if we're thinking about rom-coms, if you think about the messages we get, what we see is people not sitting with the awkwardness. There always have to be someone who is right and someone who is wrong. And there's no option for two people to be in a situation and for both of them to be kind of like different and have different feelings and work with that. So we have literally no foundations of being able to handle awkwardness and differences in a relationship.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, my last relationship ended because we had to talk about feelings and he was like, I can't. I never learned that. I'm like, and it takes me a while to ask for anything. So, once I started to ask for something and realized that I had needs, beyond what was happening in the immediate real time dynamic between us, which was wonderful, everything kind of fell apart. And so I'm trying to figure out for the next committed relationship that I'm in, because I'm in more casual kind of erotic relationships. Erotic friendships is probably, I'm going to brand erotic friendships. I need to figure out how to ask for what I need, to know what I need, and then to ask for it sooner, because I feel like it gets to be too long and then I give off the perception that I don't have any needs.
Yeah, and erotic friendships are a great place to practice that, right?
Tell me more.
Well, because the stakes are a little bit lower, right? You're not
Yeah.
worried, oh my goodness, if this, firstly, you have multiple, so you've got fallback positions.
That's right. Ranked
Secondly,
order. Yeah.
you're not like, oh, we're in a relationship now and we're really trying to make this work. And so it's a great time to just practice asking for everything that you want. And I think it's so powerful. One of the problems that we have, especially if we don't ask for what we want, is like when we finally get up to asking for it, it's like we need it so badly.
Mm,
It's just this one little thing. Whereas if we're just like, I'm asking for like 100% of what I want, knowing maybe I'll get 40% of it, but that's
right.
way more than asking for, 1% of what you want and then getting zero of it. And so just really practicing like asking for things and not thinking if I ask for it, that other person needs to give it to me, but I'm just going to ask away. And then, and with a really much like, hey, if you want to do this, this is something that would really be great for me. And if not, let me know, but like really asking without like expectation, but with lots of asking instead of just minimizing it so much.
That is something that has never occurred to me. Because I'm like, well, I just want this one little thing. And then if he could give it to me, then that'll be great. And then I'll be satisfied because I don't have very many needs and I only need this, and then I put all this weight on this one thing. And, and if I don't get that, I'm crushed. I think it's such a great idea. And also because we are trained to take up as little space as possible, to be as low maintenance as possible, to, because of the social, the censure of women who are too much, who ask for too much, who want too much, who are too big, who, take up too much space. That's real and profound. And so I think like we are raised to not ask. but I also worked with a producer in television who asked for every outrageous thing all the time. And I learned so much from him because we didn't want to give him these things, but we had to give him some of it. And so he was winning no matter what.
Right.
And I mean, and literally what I learned from that is you don't ask, you don't get, you know?
Yeah, totally. I'm really big on going out there and like asking for what I want. I do it very naturally. I have no idea where I got this idea, how it skipped me. I'm just walking around and just like narrating my life generally. And so things come out, you know. But I'm also thinking about, if we're thinking about one of the issues that I see mostly women dealing with is like they don't even know what they want,
Right.
or they don't even stop to explore what they want, especially sexually.
Right.
Especially like, what is it that I want? What is it that will turn me on? There's a lot of expectation from their partners or lovers to come in and offer them things, and then they'll be like, no, yes, maybe, I don't know, you do it, and I don't know what I'm going to get out of it. So there's something about really helping them develop agency to kind of like have a menu, see like, oh, that might feel good, that might feel good. I really like soft touch, I really like, you know, grabbing, I really like when you look me in the eyes and tell me that I'm beautiful, and kind of really helping them expand the menu about what is even possible to ask for.
Yeah. Where is that menu? Like, I mean, seriously, how do women even know what's on the list?
Well, we have a couple of books that actually put the menu out there. Making Love Real has a big menu of different kinds of what we call hottest sexual movies around romance and passion and dominance and submission. And we break down like all of these different things. And there's also, you know, sensuality. What kind of touch do you want? And so actually we've put together a pretty thorough menu in that book. And then in our other book, Coming Together, we help people get into their erotic mind. Like, what are the feelings that they want to have? Because that's what we really
Yeah.
go to sex for. Like, what do you want to feel during sex? Like, I want to feel precious, or I want to feel used, or I want to feel taken, or, you know, degraded. Like, whatever it is, to really get the precision in terms of that makes sex so much better.
Right.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, and you guys are used to talking about sex and what people might want from sexuality, but I would imagine that some of our listeners who hear the words used and degraded, like they're like, "What? What? Why would I want that? What is that?" And I would love for you to sort of elucidate a bit of a vocabulary for people around like why would you want something like that? Where does that come from? Like isn't sex supposed to be a sacred union between, you know, two people who are deeply in love? I mean, this is the rom-com, right, interpretation of it. But, you know, that's not necessarily a formula for the hottest dynamic or tapping into your deepest fantasies or your, you know, whatever your stuff is that's gotten built into you throughout your life.
yes, exactly. And I think we have like some idea of what considered to be hot sex. And for many, many people, it's actually not so hot to have sex in that way.
Well, for many people who are women.
Exactly. Yes.
So what you see in the media is like, and then he takes her. And it's like, where's the foreplay?
Yeah.
Like, how is she even turned on?
Yeah.
Like, okay, you get a little kissing and then like you get pushed on the bed. Like it's, for me, that's not enough.
Totally, totally. And we broke down, took us many years to get there, but we really realized that what's really motivates people to go to sex is when they get the feelings that they want to feel during sex. And we call it core desires. And those core desires are shaped early on through experiences we have in childhood, through incomplete experiences that we want to keep playing with and really kind of working the experience that we had, and in order to get some sort of fulfillment. So those feelings are running the show behind the curtain. It's like, you know, we have Wicked now. So, you know, like the Wizard of Oz, a really awesome Wizard of Oz playing behind the curtain. And they're the one who are running the show. And the best sex for us, for everyone, is getting the feelings that we want to feel.
And sometimes, like you said, some of them are like resolution feelings where it's like, oh, this was a missing experience for me, and now I feel better because I feel loved or seen or held. And sometimes it's like you're repeating some bad experience that you had, but you're doing it with agency. So you're like, okay,
Mm,
I was used before, but now I'm going to be used and I'm going to be the one in charge of being used, right? And a
mm,
lot of BDSM is actually based on this premise that like there's all of these parts of our erotic mind that have these, there's like darker sides of it. But when we do it like with agency, with another consenting adult who cares about us, then we get to feel like I sometimes like to feel very, very precious and then a little bit used, but I have to feel very precious first. So, or I want to be approved of or something like that, right? Because approval is
yeah.
really arousing, like, oh, I'm such a good girl for doing such a good job at that, you know. Or feeling special, but whatever it is, it's like it's this whole mixture of things. And if we judge some of them, then a lot of people won't have access to their highest turn-ons, right? Because we can do all of these things consensually without harming anyone with other adults, and then it's really healing and powerful.
Well, talk to me about shame because I feel like so many people bring guilt and shame to their sexual relationships that they don't even know that they're carrying, but that sex is so tied up with, like, if you have a religious background, there's a lot of judgment around being a sexual person or around wanting sex or around sexuality in general, or if you if sex was modeled or sexuality was modeled in a weird way for you as a kid, or, or the lessons that you were getting somehow from the culture, whatever made a big, sticky impact on you. Ew, gross. I didn't mean to put it that way. Um,
This is,
whatever stuck to you as a
yeah, but
young person. Like, for example, I watched my father objectify women my whole childhood. And I watched him watch their asses as they walked down the street. Now, is that why I sometimes want to be objectified?
yeah,
Probably.
probably.
Probably. Like, okay, that feels gross. I don't like that. But at the same time, I would rather own that than feel bad about the fact that that is something that I feel. And I'd like to take the power into my own hands and eroticize that experience rather than just kind of like shoving it in a little corner and being like, oh God, that's so gross and weird and I hate it, even though it is gross and weird and I hate it, you
And
know?
love it. I know. I just loved now what you did. You just showed the perfect trajectory of how someone developed core desires. Because what happens is there was an experience, not your fault. You did not choose your dad to do what he did, right?
I did not.
But it made a huge impact on you.
Yeah.
And then you need to sort it out somehow. So, okay, that's the place that I feel like this very de-shamifying approach can be so helpful. And we bring like the most gentleness, love, care, and de-shamification into this experience of exploring core desires because we don't choose what turns us on. That's not ours to choose. But we get to play with those very charged materials and we can keep playing with them in the bedroom because that's the best place to play them out and play
Yeah.
with this tension of, wow, what would it feel like if I'm going to be this objectified person? That would be repetition with agency. Or what would it be like if I'm just like a really, like the opposite of it. Like if I'm not objectified, I'm like really good and really like pure and really, so you can play with those feelings in the bedroom and really play with the tension, and that's what makes it so hot.
And I mean, I also like to objectify men and show them my approval, and praise their bodies. And, they don't get attention like that. They don't get attention. And I feel like, well, I'm just gonna treat you like my toy.
I'm the same.
If that's who they are and that vibes with whatever the dynamic is. And I think, like, for me, that's a little bit of a reversal of my childhood shit as well, right? But Danielle, I want you to say again what you just said, which is we don't choose what turns us on. Like, I'd love to dig into that a little bit more, because I think as women, we just feel responsible for every thought we're having, and we want to be able to optimize, our emotional experiences, and we want to be able to self-improve to the ends of the earth. And like, this sort of terrible cocktail of like self-judgment and shame and disempowerment around our desires. Like, I just want to hear you, both of you, preach this,
Yeah.
because I think women, especially women in midlife who have an opportunity to do things differently, now that they're sort of fully grown and responsible for themselves, I just love to hear how people can think about things differently.
And powerful in our own lives, right? I think
That's right.
that, like this thing about responsibility, like we can't take responsibility for things that didn't happen, but we can say, okay, those things happened to us, and now I'm going to choose what I do with them, and I'm not going to shame myself and beat myself up. I'm going to be like, okay, like I am a powerful woman out in the world, and I like to be a little powerless in my sex life, and that's not contradictory. Like that's
Why is
part
it not?
because that's part of me being powerful. It's what turns me on. And part of me feeling powerful out in the world is having amazing sexual experiences. That's like, for me, that's what fuels like my hormonal balance for my orgasms and my like joy from my amazing sexual experiences. That's what gets me up in the morning. That's what makes me part of being a powerful woman out in the world, is like having that resilience and that fuel from having those amazing sexual experiences exactly the way that they turn me on the most. Regardless, because nothing bad is happening when we're playing in these sexy, dirty, naughty, fun, sensual, whatever it is that turns us on. All good things are happening. Wonderful hormones are being released into my brain from feeling very precious and a little used. And then I go out in the world and I can conquer, And for me, that is empowerment, like to get what you really, really want.
And you know what? I want to add to this another layer, because what people do, it's like those themes are not going anywhere. Promise. We can't, like, they are our life themes. That's it. That's why we want to deshamify it. And you know what people do? What people do is they go and play it unconsciously. So then they choose partners that humiliate them and don't take them seriously and put them in the corner, not in a consensual way. And then they don't get to be powerful. But if we own it, if we start to explore it, we see like, wow, what really turns me on? For me, knowing what turns people on is the best key to helping them with everything in their lives. Because if I know what turns them on, I'm just like, wait. You've been playing it in your life and choosing like really crappy partners for yourself that make you wait and make you like, they disapprove you.
Right.
Maybe we can play it in the bedroom, but then find someone who's going to be really respectful, and then be able to play with those themes in the bedroom. And they can make you wait in the bedroom, and they can humiliate you just a little bit in a way that turns you on. But in life, you're going to have a fantastic partner who's going to really care for you.
Oh my God. Do you sell those?
No, you
Do you
train
do,
them.
do you offer those partners? Because that's the toughest one, is the guy who's going to be, I mean, I'm straight, so guys, the guy who's going to be, a great communicator and a great partner, and really empathetic and can talk about his feelings, but then also has the agility sexually and has done enough self-exploration to be comfortable in these spaces with me as a partner.
Yeah, and I think a lot of women want like some fully formed, version, and I
Yes.
want to say like, I'm sorry, good luck, like
You have to train them up, is what
yeah,
you're
and
saying.
I mean like teach them, because people really do want to learn. I remember this one time, we have an interpersonal practice, and so I was having like this really hard emotional time right before a session. I walk into the session and I'm like, hey, I'm having a really big emotional time. Do you want to learn how to be with a woman's emotions? Because I can share with you my feelings and I can cry, but I will walk you through empathy and I will help you comfort me in a way that isn't fixing it. And he's like, yes, oh my God, please, And then I did. And I swear, like, after that, every time he was like, that session that we did where you helped me, really listen to your feelings, like, no one ever told me how to do that before.
Well, and also because it's you and it's not his partner,
Yeah.
then the stakes are so different.
For real.
right?
Yeah, right. And it wasn't like I was upset with him. We do teach repair like in that sort of when we're upset with each other way also. But it does help to practice with someone much more low stakes. And also at the beginning of relationships, like I do a lot of work at the beginning of my connections to help people learn those things. Because once you get a little further in, it's hard. It sounds like criticism. But at the beginning, people are quite open to learning and practicing
Mm.
these things. So you can't wait. That's what's really important to teach people about like sharing vulnerably and working through feelings together and negotiating when two people have different needs, like those are things that have to be introduced early with a partner.
And just for the listeners, like just to hear that these are learnable and teachable skills that most men, if you date men, like or you marry men, like that they were not taught how to be with your feelings. And that you are allowed to coach them in how you need to be received.
Yeah.
And, and I mean, I learned only in the last post divorce couple of years to be able to say to the men in my life, like, hey, I'm having feelings. I don't need you to fix it or go to solution. I just need you to be able to comfort me and be with me. Like, I just need your physical presence. Can stroke my hair? Can I put my head on your shoulder? Will you hold me? And I'll be okay. I know I'll be okay. I just need to feel these feelings. They need to pass through me. And I don't need you to tell me what spreadsheet to make about how to solve this problem. I promise you, I can make a better spreadsheet than you can. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And also that means that we have the responsibility too to kind of figure out a little bit what we need and what we want. And because like you had it, you kind of knew what you needed. Many people don't know what they need and they just like get upset. And then they're upset that their partner is not meeting them and they don't even know what they need in that moment. And then they upset their partner for not knowing how to meet them. So
right.
there's enough work to help your partner to meet you if you do know what you want, let alone imagine like how much work it is and like how likely it is not to succeed if you don't know what you need, you
Oh, yeah.
know?
I mean, I spent 20 years trying to figure out how to get my partner to understand what I needed. And I really had to come to a place where I learned what I needed. And then I would ask for that specifically and not receive it. So
And
that's
then
why
you,
I'm divorced.
exactly,
Yeah.
then you learn, okay, this person isn't capable.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? God bless. Like I think some people can learn, and in that partnership we reached the end of the learning stage. And there wasn't enough learning and so okay. There will be other people, who are more equipped. And I really think women have the responsibility to do exactly what you say is like learn what you're feeling, learn what you need, learn what you want. Like, how do women get in touch with what it is that they want? What will please them? What will give them pleasure? What will be maximum turn on? Because I think our male partners really want to give it to us.
Yeah, and you definitely want to find someone for whom that's true. I've been in experiences where it's like that wasn't really true, and then I've been
Yeah,
most of the time. I would say even like 80 to 90%, they really do want to know, and that 10 or 20%, like I'm not going out with them again. Like
that's
it's like
correct.
so you if you put your needs out there early and often, then you start to see is someone responsive to them, and also people need different things. Sometimes people need touch when they need to be soothed. Sometimes people don't want to be touched. So this assumption that like the other person should just know when people need completely different things is crazy.
Yeah. 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 And I think that's something that women need to take responsibility for. Your partner is not psychic. Your partner was never trained. Like there's probably 10% of them, grew up with emotionally evolved parents. Like it's especially if you're a woman over 40, over 50. It's a generational thing. I find the millennials are a little bit more in touch emotionally.
Yeah, and this is not like bashing men because,
No.
they were bashed themselves. Anytime they showed a feeling or had a feeling, there's a lot of violence towards men yet when they're younger if they do have more emotional, expression. And so those things are kind of like beaten out of them, way less so now, but definitely, however many years ago, right? And so it's not like it's their fault or they're being mean or they don't want to. It's like that was literally beaten out of them or shamed out of them.
Yeah. And also, many times women were sent to their room to process their feelings by themselves because they're not logical. So we have like a pretty challenging play field right here to work with in terms of like, oh, that's what women learned, like I'm too much feeling, right? That they like start to squeeze themselves into like a buttoned place. And so we have like, think about the play field. It is rough. Okay. So,
Oh, I think the listeners who just heard you say that are like, uh-huh.
Yeah, so a lot of the work that we're doing when we're working with individuals and couples is really start to help them like learn themselves, like what is my emotional makeup? Like what do I need? How do I learn to have a relationship with my emotions? How do I learn to what happens to me when I'm triggered, to recognize a trigger, to learn to de-escalate, to learn to kind of really understand the lifetime of a trigger and what do I need in order to manage it, and then like what do I need from a partner to help me to stay in connection when something like that happens. So that's again like a lot of the work that we do in coaching and in our training.
And can I say
Yeah.
one other thing about men? Because I think a lot of times when we feel disappointed by them, we think, oh, they don't care. They're just an asshole or something like that. And they get very like, just sort of like shoved aside. But I feel like when I think about it, I'm like, look, I'm asking for particular things. This person may or may not want to do those things for me. And if
Right.
they don't, that's fine. That doesn't make them a bad person or wrong, maybe just not compatible, but I'm not putting things out there like, if you aren't emotionally available to me in this way, there's something wrong with you. It's like, no, that might not be your priority right now, right? Like maybe your priority is something else, like work or, whatever, your own self-growth or just your boundaries. You don't want to do that. And so I think what I really learned, because I used to be so disappointed and like sort of upset with men.
Mm.
And then I was just like, they don't have to do what I want them to do.
It's a really good point. They don't have to do what you want them to
They
do,
don't.
either in the moment or in the long term. Like,
Exactly.
because I think sometimes, our needs are, emotional needs are often so immediate. And sometimes all our partners need to learn how to do is like, hey, I can't be present to that in this moment, but because I am focused on X, and men are really great at monotasking, they're not as good at multitasking as we are, and the emotional agility that we have doesn't always translate to what they're able to do. But if we can learn in our partnerships to say, I can't give you this right now, but here's when I can give it to you, I feel like that would solve so many problems.
Yeah.
I'm saying this about my fantasy relationship,
Yeah.
not one that I'm
And
currently in. Yeah.
And honestly, I've been married for 30 years, okay,
Hmm.
with a beautiful, loving husband. He really want to give me everything that I want, but I need a lot. Like I need a lot. I told you, I'm narrating my life all the time. Like, and he's there trying to catch what I say. Like that's love. That's real love, but he cannot help me process every feeling that I have because our relation won't survive. And I just
Not his
remember
job either.
exactly, exactly. So I think we need to have a village and not to put all this emotional need on our partners because like it's a lot to put on one person, and I'm just like, I have friends, I have Celeste, I have
You have your own
aforementioned,
therapist,
I have
right?
my own therapist for sure, and I have like my daughter, and we talk about feelings, and like it's great. Then I come in much more resourced
Mm,
into the relationship, not expecting him to meet everything that I need.
mm. Yeah, I love that. So for the listeners who are like have nowhere to start, they don't know where to start when they're thinking about their themselves as erotic creatures, right? Or themselves as the center of their own erotic lives. Like, where do we as women in midlife who've done sex and relationship the way we've done it until now, for those of us who want to make this such, like you said, Celeste, like this place that gives you this sort of juice and charge and turn on to go out into the world feeling lit up, to use your eroticism to do that, like, where do we start?
Yeah, so we have new classes that we're actually releasing right now exactly for that purpose. They're short, they are very available, and they like take you like one step at a time into learning how to figure out what turns you on. We have like a class on figuring out core desires.
Mm.
Then there's a class on like how do you share your fantasies with a partner. Then there's like a menu. What kind of fantasies you can have? Let's try different kinds of fantasies. Do you like more like tantra or like sacred sexuality? Do you like more passion? Do you like romance? Maybe you like a little bit of DS, you know? So it gives you a wide menu. And then there's like classes on like self-love and love your body and embodiment practices that help you kind of like re-trigger.
So critical for us,
Yeah.
especially as our bodies change, our hormones change.
Yeah.
I think there's so much in the culture that conspires to have us really judge and hate ourselves every minute of the day. I just heard Emma Thompson talking online about how she's never stood in front of a mirror and didn't kind of adjust for her own ability to tolerate what she was looking at. And like, who among us does not relate to that? Like sucking in your gut or moving a certain angle or like, like, I mean, I'm always pouting in the mirror. I'm always like, like, but my ex-husband used to be like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like that's how I think I look better. But it's me trying to adapt to some sort of like improvement scheme, every time I look in the mirror. But yeah, I mean, just that piece of it alone can be transformative.
Huge. Loving your body is huge. Yeah.
Definitely. Really, people, especially women, spend so much time hovering over themselves and kind of like objectifying their bodies as opposed to really kind of letting themselves be themselves. And it's really hard to enjoy sex when you're hovering.
Yeah, because you got to make funny faces and you got to squeeze your muscles. There's a lot of things you got to do to get to your pleasure and orgasms that if you're just watching yourself, you're like not going to want to do those things.
Right. It isn't always pretty. Like sexuality is not always pretty, and the sounds you make are not always pretty. But it's not about being pretty, It's about like sinking into yourself and what is your birthright. We are given this incredible gift of sensuality and orgasm and turn on and wow. I mean, it's such a power resource that I think a lot of us put in a box or in a closet or under the bed somewhere, and don't integrate into our everyday lives.
Yeah, and I love that you say that it's such a resource because I know for me, this was the place to love my body. And this was the place that I went to and like asked for my lover and husband, I've both, to tell me how gorgeous and sexy I am. And I was like developing this landing strip inside me to start, loving my body. And I would not like, I needed them to tell me a lot while they're touching me, while I'm in pleasure, while they're looking at me, that I'm gorgeous and sexy, no matter, there's no bedside. There are no bedsides to you, my lover says, like,
There are no bad sides.
yeah, all the sides are gorgeous, and that like helps me develop this great sense of self-esteem and body love. And I think like, even knowing that that's something that you're working on and asking for it directly can be such a empowerment moment.
I mean, I think a lot of women don't know that they can ask their lovers to tell them there's no bad sides to your body. Every angle is so hot to me. I mean, a lot of people are not verbal also. So like training up someone to like give them a couple phrases, that really do it for you. Like, and really praise them.
I used to send partners an email like, these are all phrases that you could say that would really turn me on or make me feel good.
How fabulous. How fabulous. Because if you have a partner who really wants to please you, if you hand them that, you hand them the keys to the kingdom.
I know. And it's like as if they don't say it, like if it doesn't come from them, it doesn't count. It's such a crazy way to do it because you know the perfect sentences that you need to hear. And the chances, I mean, I've definitely had partners land on them. Like the first time somebody told me I was a good girl, I was like, what just happened?
Totally. I'm like, I
Okay, that's going on the
Okay.
list. That is going on the
I'm
list.
blushing. That's how much I relate to that. I'm pink.
Exactly. I loved it.
So good. Well, because isn't that what we're all trained to be, right? Like, and then you get that approval and an orgasm at the same time. I mean, like, that's some real positive reinforcement right there.
Yeah.
I know, exactly. Did again, like you, I'm like, Aaron, you blow my mind. Exactly. That's what we call, we really think that pleasure, being in pleasure is the best playground to transform. Just think about it. You just said it. All those hormones come through, all those oxytocin and all those like yummy hormones come through, and we're having this like reinforcement system that's called orgasm, and we just like, oh, wait, like you tell me the things that I want to hear about me while I'm having an orgasm. That's like landed. It's landed. It landed again. And then we are able to really take it in.
Right, right. And then you can go out in the world sort of with your cup full and like, and if you have expressed that kind of agency in the bedroom and you have asked for what you wanted in the bedroom and you have gotten it and you've gotten that biological reinforcement of the orgasm and those good feelings and that yumminess, and then, well, what happens if I go out and ask my boss for a raise?
Exactly.
Exactly.
Like maybe asking for what I want out in the world is going to be the way that I can get what I want out in the world. I think it's a really, really reinforcing paradigm.
Absolutely. Be our own
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah. Oh my God. Totally.
100%. So exciting. I'm just like in bliss now, just thinking about it. Imagine us all doing it. That's
Imagine
really the feminist revolution here.
100%. Yeah. I mean, look, this podcast is about giving women permission and ideas for how to do things differently in the second half of their lives. And so I would love to hear any last words that you have for them about what is possible for them in their intimate and sexual lives in the second half.
I have to be honest, like really thinking about what the structure, for a long time, I felt like I had to be in like a relationship in order to be happy. And my primary partner now is me.
I just got a lot of feelings from that. Can you say that again?
Yeah, I am my primary partner. I am my primary partner. And it's a choice. It's an option, And I think a lot of times when I tell that to people, they're like, "But don't you want?" And I'm like, "No." I've never been happier in my entire life. Like, why would I want something else? And I had wonderful time in relationships. It was much harder because I have a lot of abandonment trauma, but I learned so much and I was with amazing men, amazing women. But now as my own primary partner, I'm so balanced emotionally. I have like way, way better connections with the people that I connect with. And it just feels very right. It fits me and who I am. And so what I really want for women is for them to like just broaden the menu. I'm not saying do it my way. This is what works for me. I'm saying what works for you. There's lots of choices, and just like being in a monogamous relationship where you live with someone and are married to them, isn't the only one. It's a wonderful one. And it might be the most fulfilling for some people. And there's so many options out there.
There's so many options out there, and we are literally given a one-size-fits-all solution to how to do love and relationship, how to do partnership, how to do parenting, how to do career, how to do sexuality. Like, we are really like railroaded into a certain path. But I feel like, especially with this generation of women who are the most successful ever to walk on planet Earth, the most educated, the most empowered in terms of our own financial well-being, and our ability to make decisions and live the lives we want to live. Like, there are so many choices, especially when your estrogen drops and you're not busy accommodating everybody else. The possibilities are so gorgeous and so sexy. And I'm so grateful to both of you for being here and talking about that. Danielle, any last things you want to say, or you feel like Celeste nailed it?
I think Celeste nailed it. And also really remembering that we don't need to bend to the societal messages and to really question I'm just reiterating what Celeste said. I have my own structure, it's not the same as Celeste. I already mentioned that I've
Yep.
both lover and husband for many years. And it again doesn't not right for everyone, but just like stop for a second and question the idea that you needed to bend, and that the only thing that makes you worthy is if you are in a long-term relationship. I really think that thing is one of the biggest things that hold women back.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right. You can write your own rules. You can write your
Exactly.
own rules. Okay, amazing. It's been wonderful talking to you. We will put information about all your programs and everything in the show notes, and hopefully people will follow the Somatic Institute and get to know your work a little bit more. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Erin.
Thanks for listening to Hotter Than Ever. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about relationships and intimacy and desire, and how asking for what we want in the bedroom and in our closest relationships can heal us and empower us to go out and get what we want in the big bad world. Is there someone in your life who needs to hear this conversation? Please share it with them right now. It's so easy to do. Hotter Than Ever is produced by Erica Gerard and Podkit Productions. Our associate producer is Melody Carey, with music by Chris Keating and vocals by Isa Fernandez. I am going to enjoy the springtime and give myself permission to flower and bloom, and I hope that you do too. I can see you out there blossoming in the second half of your life. It is so cheesy to say it, but it is truly so beautiful to witness.